Hi everyone, welcome back to Salesforce Velocity course. I'm hoping that at this point of time you already have your CMT org created. If that is true, then you can go ahead and watch this video. So this video is specifically for you to get started with Omniscripts. But before we do that, let's just go ahead and check out some basic stuff in the org. All right, so after you log into the org, you can navigate to the installed packages. And once you navigate to installed packages, you will see something such as Velocity CMT. All right, and once you click on this, you can see the basic details of this installed package. Okay, like the as in the package name, the version number, and the version name, all these things. And there is also something called tabs and objects. So you can see that how many objects got created as part of this installed package, right? So here it is 384 and these are the number of tabs that got created. Okay, these are the things that you're already getting along with this package. Okay, and once you click on view components of this package, you can see all the everything, like in more details, as in the name of the components and tabs and all those things, that what and all you have actually received as part of this package installation. Okay, so these are some of the static resources, apex classes, visual force pages, basically all the components that has come along with the package. Okay, so although we will not be able to read and check out the code into this, but you can check out the component names that we have received as part of the package. Okay, so this is the um package that we have received along with the CMT org. Okay, now let's just go ahead and check out. So as you already would be knowing, as we discussed in the previous session, that Omniscript is used for the cosmetic changes. Okay, so I will go ahead and try to lay out a very simple, a very basic scenario, and using that scenario we will go ahead and try to create a Omniscript so that it will be easier to understand. And along with the creation process, I will also explain what are the smaller details and what does it mean, as in keep on explaining as we go through the use case. Okay, so let's just first go ahead and understand the use case. Okay, so let's just take a very basic use case of, as in what I want to do here is that in the Omniscript I want to create a screen. Okay, let's say this screen. Okay, and this screen will have search account. Okay, search account, and we will provide a text box here. Okay, so basically once you enter the account name, there should be a button. Okay, like next button. And once you provide the account name and when you click on next button, it should actually take you another screen. Okay, and this screen will actually give you account details. Okay, account details, and along with account details it should also give you contact details. Okay, and then this one should have like a close button and also a previous button. We are not going to cover like the whole scenario in this video, but we will just get started. At least let's just create the view of both the screens that we want. The data fetching part we will cover in next video, but I'm just going to focus on introducing you to the Omniscript Studio and how to actually get started creating this UI. All right, so let's just go ahead and get started with that. All right, so I will navigate back to the org. All right, so once you now switch to your lightning page, this was the classic page that I was showing you. Okay, so once you navigate to the lightning version of the page, here you can search for something called as Omniscript. Okay, so this is where you need to click Omniscripts. So once you click on Omniscripts, if you look at the URL, this is nothing but a lightning page. Okay, and you can see the page name. So basically this package has given you a page which already has these buttons, right? Either you can import a script or you can create a new script. So you don't have to worry about this page because you already have an option to create a new one. Okay, so everything else on this page has already been taken care by the package. So all you have to do is you have to click on new based on whatever requirement you want to achieve. So once you know what Omniscript you have to create, you can navigate to this app Omniscripts, and then you can click on new. So once you click on new, you will be presented with this screen. When you have to enter some basic details. So for example, name. So if you see the first screen that I removed the annotation, but the first screen was to have account search text box. Okay, so I'm just giving like a more relevant name over here. So let's just give a name as account search uh, use case. All right. This is nothing but the language, and the type and subtype you should actually be very careful about, like, before you give type and subtype, because using the type and subtype you will actually find your OmniScript on this screen. Okay, so if your type and subtype is not very relevant and not following your project standards, then you might really struggle, with finding your script onto this screen, because this screen, these OmniScripts screen will have like thousands of scripts, right, based on the project length. Okay, so this is something that you can actually give like very smartly based on your project. So let's say if your project is following a naming convention, right, anything, so let's say I can give here as VLO or something like this. Okay, whatever makes more sense, and anything that can be kept standard across your project, that is something that you need to give in type. Okay, and subtype should also be something which you can actually this is a bit slow, but it's okay. And description is something that, which kind of, if there's a new developer coming into the project and if they open your OmniScript, then they should be understand like, why you have created this OmniScript. Okay, so you can provide description according, according to the requirement that you are actually script for. Okay, and LWC enabled OmniScript, that means that checkbox is for if you want your OmniScript to be enabled for LWC. Okay, so we will go ahead and check that out later on, so I'm just unchecking that for now. Okay, and here, one more thing, if your project is not following any standard, then you can just give like, any object name over here. Okay. So in type, I have given VLO, but even if I don't give that, I mean, for example, I mean, I'm not really working on any of the bigger projects. Okay. And there's no convention and stuff. Okay. So I can simply give here like, the object name. So I will give here it as account. Okay. So if you don't have any like, such naming conventions, you can just give the account, like, object name over here in the type, and your subtype would be anything that you can define yourself, which should be again like, as per the standards that you follow for your project. All right, and when you give the name for the OmniScript, just try to give the name in a camel case, right? Camel case as in like, if this is account search use case, so every word, like, the first letter of every word, I have kept it as capital and everything else is in small. Okay, so like, just few of the like, smaller best practices that you should actually be following. All right, so once you have all this information filled in, just click on save. All right, so once you click on save, your script has been like, the basic structure of the script has been created. And if you observe, this is basically divided into three panels. Okay, available components, structure, and properties and preview. So this is basically one component, and this is one component, and this is one component. Okay, on the first panel of available components, these are the things that you will be using while creating your OmniScript, right? For example, what are the actions that you want to use? And there are like, multiple actions, and we will discuss all those actions like, as we go along. Okay, so we don't have to discuss each and everything right now, but we will only discuss whatever we need for our requirement. Okay, that account search screen that we want to create. All right, and similarly, like, for display functions, and we have something called groups, because the structure that we follow here is according to the steps, step 1, step 2, step 3. So there are like, few features in the groups that you can use, and there is obviously something such as input that will basically give you what kind of data block you want, right? So in Salesforce, when you create a field, it is basically like, you always choose the data type, right? So in OmniScript, as it is a drag and drop kind of a like, setup, you will still need to tell, right, the screen, that what kind of input box do you want, right? So whether it has to be a checkbox, or whether you want it to be a currency box, date time, all those things, right? So this is nothing but telling you the data type of the box that you want to use in your OmniScript. All right, so these are the like, basically the available components that you will have on your OmniScript. And structure is something that defines that how many like, um if I say like, how many screens, or basically every step of your OmniScript. So let's say if I have let's say I have two screens. So the first screen can be kept at step one, and I can define everything along with step one. Then I can create another step as step two, and I can keep another screen for step two, right? So likewise, basically this is nothing but you can say that a layout for your execution sequence. Okay. So when your OmniScript is executed, the first thing that is going to run is the script configuration. Okay. So if you click on the script configuration, you can see this is the name that I gave while creating the OmniScript, right? Account search use case, and this is the type and subtype that I gave, right? So basically the basic information. And if you see, there are few other things. If you want to make it LWC enabled, you can use click this box. If you want any other OmniScripts or anywhere else in the projects, if you want this to be available for others to use, then you can mark it as reusable. Okay. And label outside of field, these things we will discuss once we work on the other steps of the script. All right. So these are some basic options available over here, which you can choose according to your requirement. So again, I'm not going into detail for each and everything. Once you create OmniScript, you can go ahead and read it out. But this is script configuration is basically something which is going to run at first when your script is executed. Okay. So that it will check for every detail that you have provided in the OmniScript. Okay. And after that, if you see, by default it has created a step one for us. Okay. So there is one more benefit over here. So if I click on step one, it just shows me that what do I have on step one. So currently I don't have anything. So it is just showing me the basic element name that are there. Okay. And also every time you keep on modification, you keep on modifying anything to this step, you can click on preview. So basically whatever you implement, you will be able to preview it here itself. Okay. So let's just go ahead and try something out. So for example, the requirement that we discussed, right? So we need a text box. All right. So to enter the account name. So for in under inputs, let's just go ahead and search for text. So I will just drag and drop it here. So you see now it is giving us the element name, field label, default value, control with, and all these things, and few of the basic stuff that other stuff that can be done. So let's just give it as give some element name. And remember that this element name is going to be like your API name, which would be unique within the script. Okay. Not outside the script, but within the script. Okay. So this, whatever name you are giving will be treated as a unique identifier for this particular element that you have put here. Okay. And this is the label that you want to give. So let's just give a label as enter enter account name. Okay. I don't want to give any default value, but there are other things, right? You can make it required, or or you can make this field as read only. And if you click on repeat, then this allows to repeat the field label. These, let's just explore all these things one by one. Okay. So I've given the basic details for this element. Now let's just go ahead and click on preview. Okay. So here you can see this is my step one, and here it is asking me to give the account name, right? Enter account name. This is what I have given the label as. Okay. And here also you can basically switch the panel how you want to see the preview. Okay. So this is universal page, lightning universal page. If you click on lightning, then you'll get a different view of the panel. And also you can click it on as new port. So these are the different kind of view which is available over here. Okay. So now let's just go ahead and add some. So let's just make this field. So two things. Okay. First, I'm switching back to lightning universal page. So the first thing that I want to do is I want this label to show outside the box. I don't want it to show here. Okay. I want to show the label outside the box. So I'll go back to the properties and label outside of field. Okay. I clicked on here. And let's just preview this. So now you can see that the label is outside the text box. Okay. Likewise, if based on your requirement, if you are clicking it as read only, then it will be displayed as read only. So let's just make it required. Okay. You can also add help text and all those things. And let's just first check the required. Now you can see, right? So it is required now. And these things, right? Masking, pattern, and minimum length, maximum length, error text, right? So these are the things for, let's say, if you are creating a text box for providing password, right? Then you might want to, like, mask that particular field. Okay. So this basically gives you, like, the masking capability that you can apply on the field. And here you would have to give the pattern. Okay. So pattern as in, like, let's say if your password should be, like, um not exactly password, but let's say if you have to enter an email ID, right? So in email ID, like, right, that there has to be a pattern, right? At the rate gmail.com or at the rate anything else.com, right? So basically those kind of patterns you can define here so that it can validate the, like, the text box based on the masking or the pattern. These two are basically, I would say, the same thing. Okay. But here, basically, you can provide an error text if the requirement that you have given in the masking or the pattern does not match. Okay. And here, like, some other validation, for example, minimum length and maximum length, right? The same thing. Let's say if there's a phone number, or let's say if there's a password, then you can here define, right, that what should be the minimum length or what should be the maximum length that the user should be providing. Okay. So these are some basic validations that you can put on your element, whatever you have kept here. All right. And this is nothing but a placeholder that, like, when you preview, and if you want the text field to show some value by default, then you can put a placeholder here, available for pre-fill when hidden. These options is actually for, like, any kind of conditional rendering, basically. So let's say if there are two fields and the other field you want to display based on some condition of the first field. Let's say if there's a value in the first field, then only you want to display the second field. So in those kind of conditions, we are going to use this checkbox. Okay. So right now, in the requirement that we are discussing, please like, let's just be on the same page that we are only trying to explore how Omniscript looks like. So we are not going to discuss each and everything in detail. It is for you to figure out, like, basically to, like, kind of explore all the options that it has given. But this particular session is only going to provide you, like, a very basic overview, like, what Omniscript is. Okay. Of course, like, as we go along with the session, we will come across to the use cases where we will be using all these options. But for now, just, like, keep the very basic concepts in your head, so it will be easier for you when you execute any use cases in future, so you would know that where to go back and what changes to make. All right. So all right, so for this particular element, we are only making it as required and label outside of field. Okay, so let's just preview. Okay, but if you see here, we don't have that next button over here, right? We only have cancel and save for later. But in the use case scenario that we discussed, we want another screen to get displayed by clicking on the next button on the first page. Okay. So the next button will automatically appear once you add another screen. Okay. And for adding another screen, let's just create another step. Okay. So we will go back to the groups, and here we are going to create another step. Okay. So step 2. All right. And on this step, so in this session, I'm not going to show you how to fetch data from Salesforce and how to display it. So for now, let's just only, like, create another text box over here so that we understand about that, those buttons and navigations. All right. So I'll go to inputs and I will create another text, or let's say, like, some more fields. For example, let's just drag one or two more, and let's also take date. All right, so here again, by clicking on the element, you can give the element name, the unique identifier for this element. Okay, and you can give the property as per your requirement. All right, similarly, you can do the same for other elements. But let's just go ahead and click on preview and see what we are getting in the preview. Okay. So here you can see we have step 1 and we have step 2. And here the first screen is enter account name. So let's just enter something here. Okay. And if I now you can see that the next button is available here, right? And if you click on it, you will see the second screen. This was the second screen, right? These are the elements that I have kept, right? Text box, currency field, and date 1. Okay. And if you scroll down, you will also see a previous screen. And once I'm clicking on previous, you can see that this is retaining the value. Okay. It is cached. So when I click on next, and let me also provide some value to these text boxes. Okay. Text, and then let me give some value here, and let's just give some date here. Okay. So once I click on previous, it showed me what I entered on the first screen. When I click on next, it showed me what I entered on the second screen. Okay. So the values are cached as you move along with the screens. Okay. So you don't have to take care about what happens if I go to the next screen and stuff like that. In the future sessions, we'll also learn how to basically take your values from screen 1 to screen 2. Okay, so let's say if there's a field on screen 2 which on which you want to display the account name that you entered on screen 1, how you're going to take that value to screen 2. Okay, so right now I'm not going to discuss it, but we will discuss all those scenarios in the future sessions. Okay, so this is basically how you create different screens. Okay, and how you can drag and drop controls based on your requirement. And also there is one more thing that I wanted to let's just talk about a little bit on the execution sequence. Okay, so as I discussed that whenever you OmniScript, okay, whatever you have written, whenever it is executed, the first thing that it is going to load is the script configuration. Okay, this is the part that is going to get executed first. Okay, and then step 1 will be executed, and then step 2 will be executed. Okay, so it also says that as it is sequential, the output of the first whatever thing got executed, the output of the first one will be feeded as the input of the next step. Okay, so here also whatever the output you get in step 1, that will be feeded as the input for step 2. Okay, and your OmniScript is always going to run each and every step one by one. Okay, so let's say even if you for example, let's say if there are 100 steps. Okay, and there are a lot of DMLs, right, that you have used, you're querying Salesforce data, for example. Okay, so do not think about, okay, what if there are 50 to 100 steps and there are a lot of DMLs, then it is going to basically degrade the performance. It is not going to work like that. Okay, it basically will query the data based on which step you are. Okay, so if you're on step 1, then the DML that you have are basically performing under step 1, only that will be executed. It's not going to execute the DMLs that are there for the next 50 or 100 steps. Okay, similarly, let's say if you're doing an Apex class call, right, or any component, if there are any other component that you're calling, right, let's say an Apex method or something like that, then and that kind of call you have in a lot of your other steps. So it's not that the moment your Omni script is executed, everything will be called at once. It is not going to work like that. It will work based on which step you are on. Okay, so if I am on screen 1, okay, if I'm on screen 1, then whatever method I'm calling or whatever DML I'm doing, that is going to get performed based on which screen I am. Okay, so and the moment I navigate to the next one, whatever the calls and everything that I've made in that particular step, that will get executed. Okay, so it's not going to degrade the performance. But here just remember about the execution sequence. Okay, first is script configuration, and after that all the steps that you have defined. There's one more thing that I wanted to highlight. So let's say if, for example, let's say if you want to use an Apex method in your step 2, then where are you going to actually call your Apex method? Okay, so you want your Apex method result to be available in step 2, so the call has to be done here. Okay, so that the output over here can be used as an input over here. Okay, so those are I would say it's more that will something it's something that will come along with experience, along with the more you practice, you will understand. Okay, so don't worry about all those things, but those are very minor details that you should be knowing. All right, so anything that you want to use, if there are any calls that you're making, then do it one step previous so that it can be available as the output to the next step. All right, now let's just also and another thing is that do not think that I know that if you understand the basic use of whole Omni Studio thing, then you would know that this is something for industry specific use, right? So you would not have to kind of create extra keep on creating extra fields on your objects. Okay, because everything here is maintained in the JSON format. Okay, so let's just go ahead and check the JSON once. Okay, so here if I click on preview and if I click on data, uh, these are some, you can see like, step one, and this is the element. Okay. So this is our like JSON structure where you can see all the information about your OmniScript. So this is step one, and this is the element name that I have used. This is the value. It's like everything is in JSON is like key value pair, right? So it is same here as well. This is the key and this is the value. And in step two, we have these three elements, right? Text two, currency, and date one. And these are the values that we have given. Okay. And apart from these steps structure, there are like, few other information over here. For example, context ID, timestamp, user ID, username, and user profile, all this basic information. Okay. Um, we will learn about context ID, but basically right now the only thing that you have to keep in mind is that, let's say if you have to I would not say merge, but let's say if you have to integrate two OmniScripts. Okay. If you want to form a relation between two OmniScripts, or you can say that if you want to call one OmniScript from another OmniScript, then you can use the context ID. Okay. So this is one OmniScript that I have. Let's say I have another OmniScript, and in that OmniScript I have to, let's say I have to create similar two screens. So why would I create again these two screens in that OmniScript, right? I can rather call this OmniScript, because this OmniScript is already creating those two screens that I need in that other OmniScript, right? So I can call this OmniScript using this context ID into that OmniScript. Okay. So this is basically to connect the OmniScripts. It is used to connect the OmniScripts. And the other things are like, some basic details, like, for example, which user it is, like, who is doing this, and username, and these kind of stuff. Okay. Um, I think we will like, discuss more about JSON in the upcoming sessions, but I believe this much for now is kind of like, enough, I would say. And also like, just remember that these element names, they are like, kind of, so in the normal JSON that you would have seen, when you see a JSON structure, let's say if this is an element name, that same element name cannot be used within that structure. Okay. But in OmniScript, it is not like that. It can be like, it is, it is not, it doesn't work like just like, within the block, but it is like, unique within this OmniScript. Okay. So account name, and then it can be used again here as well. Okay. So there are some basic things, but don't worry about it as we go along and like, move along with the creation of these use case. Then we will discuss more about those things. But for example, just like, for now, like, just remember about the kind of structure that it creates, like, similar, like, if you know about JSON, then it is like, pretty similar, as in like, in terms of parent, root node, parent node, and like, all the child info which is available over here. Okay. Um, so let's just also go ahead and check something else. So I will move to, or let me be inside the lightning. I want to show you the other details that it shows on the, so this OmniScript that we have created, we created it under OmniScript tab, right? So now I want to see the, like, other information, like, as in what and all is getting created in the backend, right? I want to check that out. So I will navigate here, and sorry, let's just, this is a bit slow. So I'm just moving to like, classic. You can check this out in lightning as well. So right now we have been working on OmniScript, right? This is what we searched. This is where we created the OmniScript, right? Now I want to see that what are the scripts that I created, what and all does it hold. Okay. So I will navigate to Velocity OmniScripts. Okay. So this is the one that we created. Okay. And if I click on this, it will give me all the details. So this was the name, type, subtype, and I only have one version, right? So it is showing me like, one version over here. And here, if I, okay, these are the elements that I created, right, as part of step one and step two. So if you see like, these elements, this is also showing us the complete list of the elements. And one more thing, if you see this script, okay, you can see this object, Velocity OmniScript. So it created your OmniScript, the script that you created, okay, here. This got created inside this object, Velocity OmniScript. Okay, so this is basically a record, the whole thing that you have created. Okay, this is nothing but basically a record inside this object, velocity omniscript. And if you want to check the object details, you can check it from if you check it in the backend, it will show you the object details. So these are the information, and here there would be one JSON file. This is the one, okay, and this is the one that we would be discussing the most, okay. So right now I'm not going through it, but this basically this is how you can check the record details of the OmniScript that you have created. All right. This is something, this JSON file is the one, let's say if just giving you a very small example, let's say if you're working on a project and your OmniScript is working in your lower org, but it is not working in production, right? Let's say if there's a difference in two environments, the way your OmniScript is behaving. So the first thing as a developer, OmniScript developer, that you're going to compare is this JSON. Okay. That is where you will actually find the flaw. Okay. So, and also just keep in one, keep one more thing in mind, that all the elements that you're creating, okay, here it shows like a field, right? But these are elements. It's not going to create extra fields. Okay. So in Salesforce, as I said, right, that in industry specific solutions, based on the use cases, based on the requirements, you create extra fields and stuff. And that way your object is totally filled with new fields. And if the requirement is very dynamic and it's keeping it keeps on changing every day, then just imagine how many fields you will end up creating, right? But here it is just giving you the ability to create elements instead of new fields, and the same elements you can use in the script, and everything will be encapsulated in the JSON structure. Okay. So this is how you can create a OmniScript. I hope this actually helps you to at least get started. Just go ahead and create some OmniScript and play with these controls and the structure, and try different things that you want. You can also try different inputs, so that you at least get comfortable with the way it you have to navigate on it. Okay. And also if I go back to this, right, OmniScripts, this is what we have created, right? And here you can see the version. Okay. So the version is 1. Okay. And let's say if you want to create another version, then you can basically clone this version and then create another version. So this shows you uh and also if you see these things, it can be also exported, and you can also basically delete it if you want, and you can view this, preview this in new port or lightning. Okay. And here if I click on this, it will take me to the OmniScript. I'm not seeing that clone. Okay. Create version, here it is. I was checking for that clone button, but here it is, create version. Okay. So if I click, so here if you see, I have only one version, and that is what I opened, right? So it is showing me version 1. But if I click on create version, it is going to create another version. So basically if there is already an existing OmniScript and you want to make some changes on top of that, so I think it's always best to create another version and then work on that. Okay. So now you see there's a version 2 that got created. Okay. And if I navigate back to this, you can see the version 2 has been created. Okay. So this is just the introduction part of OmniScripts, that how you can get started with OmniScript. I hope at least this helped more in detail, and we will work on the basic use case that we had discussed, right? Account search and then displaying the account details and associated contact details in upcoming sessions, when we also go through data raptors, because we have to learn, right, that how to fetch data from Salesforce and how to display it. So the only thing that we talked about in this session was the UI, but we also have to talk about logic and data, right? So that is something that we will take up in the next sessions. All right. So I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.